right, it is 5:07 on Tuesday, March 22nd, and let's call this tree commission meeting to order. Bailey, do you want to do a roll call?
Sure. Charlie Campbell,
Here.
Marvin Block, Donnie Barnard,
Here.
Leah Argyle,
Here.
and Andy Bruni.
Here. Okay. To just kind of, on minutes, we can look through this packet here. We touched on Tree City status, renewed. 2022 is the city's second year. We were talking a little bit about the tree preservation ordinance that we'll get into a little bit later. We have to discuss Arbor Day planning in this meeting. We did that in the last meeting. The large oak tree that is within the dog park up at the trailhead. We discussed that last meeting. So we have it in our budget to kind of keep maintenance on that, put some cables in to stabilize it if needed. So we'll kind of keep an eye on that. And then we will talk about the other business that we added in the minutes from the last meeting, where Marvin and I are going to go pick up a red oak from Acorn Farms. And then we'll kind of continue talking about the relocation of the Route 62 trees, because a lot of them aren't really in the best of health. So Marvin had an idea about transplanting those. And that's about it as far as moving on from the minutes. If there's any additions or any questions about the minutes, if there is any action from the last meeting.
Make a motion that we accept them.
I second that.
Okay. And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Very good. All right. So, moving on, and I mentioned the 62 trees, the relocation of those ivory silk lilacs. Marvin was suggesting that I guess the staff or workers for the city of Johnstown would, with permission from the homeowners, could we move those, dig them up, and take them somewhere else, put them somewhere else within the village? Because they're not doing real well between the curb and the sidewalk there, not enough water. If a homeowner says leave it there, then we'll leave it there, and then maybe we can encourage them to water it, or it could just, stay there and not be the most healthy.
Hi, where's Teresa?
Are you looking for event committee? They're actually in the admin office.
Thank you.
Yep.
So how many trees would that be?
Oh, he did mention how many there were. I mean, are there about 20?
I don't know.
And then if we transplant them, I mean, what would be our goal? To put them along a street somewhere else, or to say to somebody in Johnson, like say me, say Charlie, hey, anybody who's interested in one of these trees, the village would be more than happy to move it from your yard if you say okay, and then we'll put it in the requestee's yard or in front of the requestee's house. Or, I mean, would that be something we would do?
We talked about a couple different things. I think one of them, if you look at where Hannah's Park is over there,
Yeah.
I didn't realize it until he said it, but the city owns property getting back to US 62 sidewalk,
Okay.
and he talked about doing an archway there and maybe putting some of the trees in that area of the park.
Okay.
That was one. Was there another one he had, or was that it?
The other idea was moving it within that right-of-way between the curb and the sidewalk up into the homeowner's yard.
Okay.
If they wanted them.
If they wanted it.
Sure, yeah. If we did that, would we transfer responsibility to them, Bailey? Is that what would happen?
Technically, it's their responsibility right now,
But they don't do it, right?
right? Marvin
Okay.
feels some responsibility for them since he put them in. So he's trying to maintain him, keep him alive.
Yeah, I'd like to do that to
Yeah.
help that money out. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's for certain.
So that's something that Marvin, we'd have to have Marvin here to kind of talk more about how
Okay.
that would.
Didn't he
How that
say
would
he was
happen.
going to go talk to each of the residents?
Yeah, he's in charge of that, so I
Yeah.
don't have an update on that.
Right. Okay. So moving on to talk about Arbor Day planning.
Okay.
And Arbor Day officially is April 29th, which I do believe is Friday. That's a
Yes.
so we were talking about the tree planting site. It's going to be a red oak or perhaps a scarlet oak, and it'll be somewhere over here, kind of in this lawn, northeast, southwest. I don't know where
Yeah.
we're going west here. Kind of right over here in this lawn. Bailey was going to call Oops and have them kind of show where any possible utilities would be, and then a hole would be dug, and then there would be a very small, I guess, ceremony, if you will, or event where a proclamation would be read, and that would be our the city of Johnstown's Arbor Day. And are you still thinking April 29th for that day?
Yeah.
If anybody here is able to be here for that, we can be here. I unfortunately will be unable to be here, but that's okay.
Are we
Yeah,
thinking
time.
morning or afternoon?
Probably morning.
Okay. Morning.
And so Marvin and I will go tag this tree. I also, one of my clients is Acorn Farms. I talked to a lady named Abby Thompson and kind of gave her a heads up on that we would be coming out.
Okay, great.
So that would be the type of thing that I'd have to get with Marvin and I. We would go pick out the tree, and then it would be great if they could load it in his truck and he could bring it, right there.
Yeah. Someone donated to our Memorial Tree Fund last year requesting the red oak, so.
Okay.
That's nice. Wow.
Yes.
How big's that kid? How big does that tree get?
I mean, it could get, if you let it go, you could see the oak that's over at the dog park that's not 100 feet tall, but it's
Yeah.
It's probably also
It's-
100 years old.
yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. That's true. Wow.
Marvin believes that to be a pin oak. I've kind of said that that's a scarlet oak over there, but I don't know. It's all in the red oak family. So we would either get the proper red oak, or perhaps we would get a scarlet oak here. Somebody said red oak specifically. Red oaks are sometimes a little more finicky, but obviously we'd be able to keep a good eye on it here and make sure that it has all the
Sure.
care and proper nutrients and watering plan for it. So that's Arbor Day. I don't know if we were going to involve the school for this one, kind of keep it simple.
You were gonna talk to.
I was message someone and find out I forgot to, so I just did now to make sure.
It's up to you if you want to.
Okay.
But you don't have to.
So
It'd be a short walk from the
Yeah,
Presbyterian school.
and that's fine. Last year we just grabbed some shovels and had the kids help shovel some dirt around the tree and provided some little worksheets for them explaining like the benefits of trees and stuff. So I'd just do the same thing.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. Any more
Good.
information about? So then, I guess between now and then, will there be another meeting before that Arbor Day celebration?
I believe so. It will be the 26th.
Okay.
So we'll have one more, and then the Friday following that meeting, we'll plant the tree.
So more than likely, that tree will be here on site somewhere.
By that time.
Yeah, if not staged and sitting in the hole, waiting for the final.
Well, it'll just depend on when I can get the service crew out to dig the hole.
Yeah.
And how much rain there is. If it's raining a lot that week, they'll try to wait until Thursday probably.
Right.
To dig it.
Okay. All right, so then we'll, on the April 26th meeting, we'll kind of talk about a specific time and more particulars about putting the tree in the hole. Moving on to item number 5, the tree preservation edits, chapter 1183. We started to talk about that before the meeting was in session. And Bailey, go ahead and enlighten us on.
So at the last meeting, I gave you guys the heads up that our tree preservation standards that we put in place last year was deemed unconstitutional. I was a little confused about why that was, so I basically handed over the edits to our attorneys, which they have done and sent back to me. So they wrote all of these edits, but their explanation was that we need to have a reason for the preservation of trees. We can't just require that. So they've provided some reasons here in 1183.01, and some of them include prevention of erosion, maintaining sightlines, preventing water runoff, maintaining air quality. So those are all some valid reasons that we can require the preservation of trees.
Can we require preservation of a tree based on the age of the tree?
We cannot.
Cannot.
Maintaining air quality, I said, providing shade coverage, maintain wildlife habitats, reduce noise pollution, and reduce glare for public safety. So those are some reasons that you can require it. They included some new definitions just to make sure that we're legally covered, and just provided some extra wording for us. One of the big things that's new in this and changed from the last one is that we will have people apply for a tree removal permit. Instead of approval of their landscape plan, they will apply ahead of time for a tree removal permit. They'll tell us all the trees that they want to that they want to remove, and we will send that to a landscape architect. So, I won't look at it. I'll probably look at it, but I won't be the one approving it. A certified landscape architect will review that plan, and they will either approve or deny it. And when they approve it or deny it, they will provide a report. And so this says that they will provide the applicant with a report detailing the number of trees that are likely to mitigate the effects of the proposed tree removal. So we can't have that number in there where we say, a 2-for-1 replacement, a 3-for-1 replacement. We can't do that anymore. The landscape architect has to provide his calculation of how many trees they need to replace, and why. The big part is why they need to replace those. He'll have to say, due to erosion or due to water runoff, you will be required to replace this many trees in order to mitigate those effects. And you asked this, Leah, but it says any granted tree removal permit is conditioned upon compliance with this section, so they'll still have to replace them. When we go into tree replacement, we still have the surrounding property tree replacement. So if you can't plant it on your property, you can elect to replace the trees on a surrounding area property, and the city landscape architect will help determine that property. And then you can pay the fee into the Memorial Tree Fund. So we still have that at least, and then any replacement trees shall have a trunk diameter at planting of at least 3 inches, measured 6 inches above the ground level. So we can't say that you have to replace it with, a mature tree. It has to be that, at least that. And then failure to replace a tree as required within 1 year of the project's completion is a violation of this ordinance. So it basically will go after them for violation of the zoning code if they don't replace the tree.
So there is teeth to it if they don't, if they just
Yes.
walk away and say screw it.
Yep. The rest of it is mostly editing village to city, which I didn't do last time, and just correcting some of the numbers. So those are the big changes, and they were in our tree preservation chapters that we wrote before.
Okay.
Who pays for the architect, the landscape architect?
We will do that the same way that we do our city engineer, and that is when an applicant submits something to us that we need an engineer to review, we send it to the engineer. They give us an estimate, well, they tell us, here's my fee for reviewing this, and we send that fee to the applicant, and then they pay us in a pass-through account, so it gets deposited into our account, this engineer bills us, and we use
Sure.
that money to pay the engineer.
Okay.
And the engineer doesn't submit his review to us until the check is paid.
I see.
And did it get or did they decide that they're gonna put any development on hold right now for 45 days until this gets finalized?
They did.
Okay.
Good questions. Any other questions about tree preservation edits or any more
Yeah.
info?
Do you have any other questions for me or any concerns with this?
I think that's pretty clear. As far as policing that, like Donnie said, so there's teeth with it. How would we go about, what's the follow-up procedure?
The same way we go about, if somebody isn't following the zoning code, our zoning inspector goes out there and tells them. If they don't, if they get 3 notices and they're still not up to code, then we send them to mayor's court.
Okay. Zoning
We
inspector.
give them a violation.
Can you send us a copy of this?
Yes. Yeah, it's in the
Is it
agenda.
in the agenda? Okay.
Yeah, like, this is the final one, right, that I'm looking at from the agenda.
Yeah, that's what I have.
Yeah.
So it's not final. It hasn't been through council. I wanted to bring it to you first.
Great.
Do you want to see this again at the next meeting, or do you want me to send it to council?
Let me ask you this, we don't, because our city attorney has made these changes, then where do we stand as saying, hey, we've read this and the wording that you have, we would like to either correct it or we don't think it's necessary. Right now we're at, and do you follow the attorney is the end all do all?
I would follow this is just my advice. I would follow what the attorney says because they're the ones who really are up to date on this case. They know, what is legal and what is not.
Mm-hmm.
So
But this
I would
was originally
recommend we
passed
follow these
before though, right?
This writing was not. The tree
But
preservation was passed.
Right, and then
yes,
this is
in
just
council.
cleaning up to match what the Supreme Court
Yes.
will allow now.
Yeah.
I think it's okay to send to council. Do
Yeah.
we need to
Yeah.
vote on that?
Yeah, that's what I was getting at,
A motion
if we're
would
not
be
gonna wanna
nice.
make any changes, then why are we hesitating? Let's just get it to
Yeah.
council and see what they say.
That's fine. A motion would be nice. If you wanted to make any changes, I would have written them down and just sent them to the attorney to tell me what he thought about it, which council can do too.
Do you want a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we accept what the attorney has said and we forward it to council.
Okay.
I'll second that.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Yep.
Aye. Good
Okay.
deal. Okay, does anybody have any other business that they,
I did talk to Randy about putting some cables in the oak tree. He's gonna look at his schedule and get us on there. You guys already have that in your budget, so.
Is it
I don't think it'll be that
presenting
much.
problems, is it?
well, Randy is the arborist, and he said over time that would prevent splitting, because there is a little bit of a split, and so you have, I guess, load-bearing branches.
Right.
That as it kind of grows over time, that could split down. And I don't know exactly where that split is occurring, but there is somewhat of a split that if it were to split, then we could lose half the tree.
So the cables are gonna go around the tree.
Well, he would drill in between here and kind of like from the middle, pull them closer together.
And try to hold up some of those heavy branches.
Okay.
And would do it in a way that would not adversely affect the tree's health.
Right.
So we would still have a green canopy up top. Everything would look fine. It would just be pulled together to prevent any further splitting.
Then that, it seems, I mean, that we're doing this, that it would present a safety issue later on if the tree splits and and it falls, then, unfortunately, you happen to be the one that's underneath it. It could be devastating to you as a person or as their pet. So I guess my question is where do we head with this? In other words, are we throwing good money after something that maybe either take another look at it a different way? I don't know. I'm absolutely relying on the arborist. Arborist knows a hell of a lot more than I do.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm just saying that it looks to me like when we start shoring things up, there's a side to that could be a safety issue, of that tree. And I sure don't want to do anything to the tree. I want to keep it as long as we can. But I also am concerned that we have a lot of people in that area all the time with their pets. I don't want anybody to get hurt because we didn't do something correctly.
I think at this point we're more concerned about the health of the tree, not necessarily that one of the branches would fall. He cut down all of the branches of concern last year, and the rest of the branches are very healthy as of right now.
Okay.
So I think the reason that we were going to put cables in is mostly to maintain the health of the tree at this point.
That's all. I just want to make
Yep.
sure it's not a safety issue.
That's a good note.
But I definitely think that we should continue just to keep an eye on it. Maybe have him come out once a year, which he said he would be happy to just run out and assess it maybe once a year, see if there are any other problem branches as the years go on.
Okay, good. Thank you.
I do have a note of new business.
Did we vote on this yet? We had the motion and a second, and we voted. We did. We all voted. Yes,
Who
we're done.
seconded it, though?
Okay, I want to make sure.
I have a note of new business, and I've had private conversations around town and with Mr. Ben Lee about the Japanese maple that is on 62 next to the Marathon Bell
Oh,
stores.
that old tree,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I don't know, has anybody brought it up about the idea of perhaps preserving that tree or transplanting that tree? Has
Yes.
that has been
That
That
discussed?
giant one?
The problem is nothing can be built on that property unless that tree is removed.
Exactly.
And we can't.
Right. So, I had, and this is behind the scenes. This is something that I've had a conversation with someone. Larry Reif used to own that property, and I had opened dialogue with him about buying that tree for a landscape company that would sell it to a high-end customer. Japanese maples do transplant rather easily.
You're talking about not the huge one. You're
No,
talking
not the
about
tall
the
one.
one
Okay, that's what I was
in
thinking.
the
Yes.
front.
Yes, I'm talking about the
Like
the
it's
one
kind
up
of in
front.
the middle,
Right,
closer to the
exactly.
62.
Closer to the
I
baby.
just want to make sure.
Yeah.
Because the other one obviously would not be transferable.
Right.
Or movable.
Yeah,
or
the
whatever. It's too big.
giant tall
But-
one, we can't do anything about that. But the Japanese maple that's kind of more in the lawn area,
Oh my gosh, that would be worth so much.
j-
It's such
well, however, it's
We talked about
such
this
a lengthy process to transplant it. I don't know if there had been any kind of talk or if there's any motion behind digging, transplanting it, and then utilizing it somewhere within
I
the
did
village.
not know that was possible. I don't think we'd be opposed to that. I didn't even know
Yeah.
you could do that.
Okay,
We need a location on where it would go.
right.
Bell Stores is moving forward with their plans for the property.
Is that who owns it now?
Um,
Bell Store?
Yeah, obviously not like next month, but they're moving forward with their plans for the property. So I think now it's definitely the time before they get equipment in there and start to start the discussion.
Well, and March is the time to move it anyway. It wouldn't be able to be moved.
Yeah,
after
we
April.
probably should have started, and I've been meaning to bring this up for a while. I thought that, because Ben Lee and I had kind of talked about, the idea, wouldn't this be nice? There's a thing called air pruning, where you can kind of dig a a trench or, basically a trench around a tree where you're defining this tree's root ball for transplant. And then anything, so you would sever the roots around it, and then you allow air in this trench that kind of help prune the roots back. And then so the roots then establish and say, hey, I no longer have this reach anymore. All my reach is within here. So then it would send out new growth within its, its root ball that we've kind of cut and established. However, the time frame for air pruning that would have been in the fall, and now we're in the spring. So I do know that Japanese maples transplant well. This would be quite a project, and there would be quite the risk involved in doing this, and we don't have a whole lot
The
of
risk
time.
of the tree dying?
Correct.
So
Yeah.
a lot of work.
So
And money.
and money.
But
So
can we pass the money to Bell Stores?
Not really.
no.
You can require them to plant trees. But the amount of money involved in this, not really. Especially since it's already written in our code. I mean, obviously this hasn't been approved, but it's written in our code that one of the reasons why you can remove trees is if it's in the way of an intended structure, and this one is.
Yeah. So the only way to save this tree would be to move it. And to do that, you would have to probably start digging ASAP to establish, its root ball. And then you'd have to have a landscape company that could come in with a
Who are
tree
you
spade.
thinking would buy it?
Well, see, at this point, because Larry Rife wanted a very high figure for this tree. To go in before this was sold, before this property was sold, he had a figure in mind. A tree of this size, it usually goes for about $1,000 to $1,500. His number was well above that, and I see that he did not want to really. I think he put it so high because he didn't want to deal with, having a crater there, which we said we would come in and grade it out, put some fill dirt there. And I think that he didn't want to mess with it. There was a clause on that property at some point about that tree. But at this point, they bought the land. They're going to destroy the tree. So I'm kind of bringing this up right now in new business.
Yeah, Bell Stores would probably let you have it,
Yeah.
but
What's the age of the tree?
they're not going to want to wait until the fall, I don't think.
No. And I'm saying this should have happened last fall for us to do it, to be ready to move now. And so I wouldn't have any use of the tree, but perhaps could this tree be utilized somewhere in the city of Johnstown? Could we take this and move it to a place, and would we want to mess with it?
I'm sure that we could, and before I could say if we want, before I think you guys could say if you want to mess with it, we need to know how much it would cost and how long it would take.
Right.
I think it might appease some people who are against expansion or this town growing, that we're at least saving the tree.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, couldn't it just be put at one of the parks?
It
Even
could
Probably
be.
put at Hannah's Park.
Yeah.
just
Mhm. It could be. This is a big. I mean, and like I said, there is risk involved of the tree perhaps not surviving. Springtime right now is a good time to dig. So if Bell Stores is okay with us, I guess, digging and getting it out by way of a massive root ball, we have to look at transportation, which it wouldn't go too far. But I do know some contractors that have large tree spades to dig this tree and then, transplant it somewhere. So from here, this is the first we're talking about it, and I'm sorry because this is an idea that I've had for years and years, and I'm just now kind of bringing it up. But I guess on the board here, do we want to go further with trying to discuss this, or would you care to have more conversation about this with?
I I don't think it would hurt to bring a plan forward.
Where should I present the plan?
I mean, if it's $10,000, it's your $10,000 to use. It's already in the budget, and that's fine. But I would also probably approach council and see what they say.
Yeah. Okay. So,
And they'll want to know how much will it cost, and how long will it take,
right.
and then what size do we need? What size space do we need to plant it? Because off the top of my head, I'm thinking Hannah's Park would probably have room.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll need to make sure, because we don't want to take it out and then not have a spot for it.
Right. Yeah.
Well, and if it's gonna cost like 6,000, some crazy amount to get it out, we could just buy a already bald, ready to plant tree
Right.
for 3,000 or two, like a really expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Probably ought to ask the owner first. I mean,
next step
you know, I
is to
mean,
talk to
I
them and
wouldn't
see.
go to Balsour's until we were sure we were actually interested in doing it. If the price comes back and it's $20,000,
Yeah.
are you going to want to do it?
Right.
Because I think that's wasting Balsour's time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they'd be opposed to it, but if we go ask them and they say yes and they start planning to do that, and then, oh wait, it's too much money, we don't want to do it, I think it's just wasting their time. So I
Yeah.
think first we should know how much and how long will it take.
Okay. So, as far as how much, getting in touch with a digging crew, and then how, and I can do that. I can actually call somebody and have those figures for just digging and transplanting. Off the top of my head, I'm thinking of a company called Dieter Nursery. They're in Clayton, Ohio, which is over in the Dayton area. So their time would be to come over to use their big tree space. Because I don't know locally, because there's Stouts Tree Farm, there's Mark Bogue Tree Farm that's somewhat local. I don't know how big their tree space are, so I'm kind of going in, I guess, within my Rolodex of knowing who has the capability of doing something like this. So I can ask them, and then also just say, hey, where do you think we are with risk factor? Is this worth it? How long will it take? Can this be done, and what's your cost figure?
Because I think it's important too. If it's financially feasible to do it, but it's going to be $5,000,
And they think it's
and the
gonna
likelihood
die.
is 50% chance it's going to live or die. I think that we have to take that into.
Right.
That's a big risk. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. One thing that we do have going for us is the fact that the Japanese maple is transplantable. So I can work on that.
And I know Ben's not here, but I think if you needed help, this is something he's interested in. So if you wanted him to maybe contact some people too, he would probably do that.
He actually walked in next door. Just saw him walk in.
Okay. Well, I know he's not in this room,
Yeah.
but I'm willing to volunteer him. I'm sure
Okay.
he wouldn't mind me doing
Sure. Well, yeah, and if you wanted to just kind of reference the fact that, or that I bring up the fact that I did reference our private conversation about this, and I'm sorry to add more to your plate, but that's something that I've been meaning to talk about, and it just kind of hit me right now.
And I'll keep this in mind for our next agenda. But if you need something to be done before the next agenda, let me know.
Okay. I will be in touch with an email, and then be in touch with Bailey about the cost figure that I hear. So we'll talk about risk, we'll talk about time frame,
Yeah.
and everything. And I've taken pictures of this tree over the years, so I can pass that along to my contact at Dieter Nursery. There is another nursery called Rusty Oak Nursery. They're up in in Valley City, Ohio, which is on the way to Cleveland. They have a large tree spade, but then once again, I'm talking about two places that are
2 hours away.
yeah,
right?
the 80 miles plus away to come here, just because I don't have anybody else that I know locally that has such the capacity or the potential to take on such a project. And then, so if Dieter says no, they're not interested, I can call somebody at Rusty Oak, and if they say no, then, you know, it
Then
just
that's
might be.
probably our answer.
Yeah, then that's probably our answer. So, we'll go with that. I can follow up, about the Japanese maple on 62. And that's my piece of new business. Is there anybody else that has new business? Or any additions, comments about anything else that we've spoken about? Okay. All right. Well, does someone want to make a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Sure, I will. I make
Okay.
a motion to adjourn the meeting.
A second?
Donnie seconds, and all those in favor to adjourn the meeting?
Yes.
Aye. Very good. Okay. Good meeting.
So all those trees in that Bell Store area, it's probably gonna be torn down then? The big one?
Even
Yeah.
the big ones back by the
Yeah, I agree, big
mechanic,
one, yeah.
or that, it's like an old apple tree, actually.
But I
It's
already
not that
told them they're
great.
gonna be required to replace, and they're planning on planting more. They're just not gonna be as old as the ones that are there, obviously.
Or
Right.
how old that tree is?
The big one.
Um,
That's my neighbor, actually. I live on that block.
what I was told by Larry Reif was that I think he bought the property in 1978, or right around there, right around 1980. I think it was pre-1980. And he said that Japanese maple was on site, and that it was about probably 4